Welcome to Carver Conversations. I'm your host, Tiff Marchand from Night Carver Designs, and this is a Saburrtooth podcast, and I couldn't be more excited to be here. Head on over to saburrtooth.com and sign up for their mailing list. They send out a coupon once a month for 25% off. You have 24 hours to use it, so you're not going to want to miss out on that chance. You can use our show code to save 10% off. The code is EM2CO. Head on over, sign up for the mailing list, and if you want to buy them now, EM2CO at checkout. Make sure to have that all in caps, and on to the show. Hello, everybody. Today on the show, we have Adam from Acaidian Mushrooms, and I know you've heard me talk about his pieces, his work before, how I can't help myself. I believe it was Eric Curtis's episode where I was mentioning how, Adam can carve a beetle or, a bee, and it is the most amazing thing. And you just want to see more of it. I love watching his process and how, he just kind of jumps in and he figures things out. So it was a pleasure to sit down and actually have a conversation with him and get to know him a bit. I hope you really enjoy the show. And yeah, don't forget to, if you're going to make an order, to use our show promo. And that way we know that you're listening and you're enjoying the show. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube, because we're going to be putting some new content out there very soon. I'm going to be making some carving videos to demonstrate what the bits and burrs do, and kind of giving you a little demo between the grits too. So hopefully it'll help you make a great decision when you're placing your order and kind of figure out what tool would be best for that medium that you're about to carve. So a lot of fun things coming up. I hope you enjoy the show. I would say, where are we hanging out? In the shop?
Yeah, we're in the shop. I mean, the best that you can see it. It's not exactly the lighting meant for a webcam, and yeah, this is like probably the third Zoom that I've ever done, so I don't have the full microphone, camera, and all that stuff.
Got you,
so,
dude.
Yeah.
If you ever invest in them, oh my God, they're so fun.
Yeah, and I think I will, just because I'd like to start doing more like face-based stuff, like explaining what I'm doing and things like that. And I mean, I see like what you do and what other people are doing, and I really like it. I just don't really want to put out something that's low quality.
When I first started, I actually have it still with me. I had an older iPhone, right? And the quality wasn't the greatest. And when I finally got really serious about it, I made sure I upgraded to the newest one they have, and
right.
I bought the ring lights, and I'm just all right, I got to commit. There's no more, just teetering around it. I want to be a content creator. So I'm like, just do it.
Well, yeah, you got to put both feet in. And I mean, ultimately you look at what people are doing, and if you're not keeping up to that standard, then, what you feel like maybe it doesn't make a difference, but you feel like it does.
Yeah.
It's just the same as with anything on Instagram, with the reels, and with even back when photos used to be a thing,
right?
You felt like there had to be a certain quality in order to get seen.
Especially when there's such people, and I don't know if you follow a lot of woodworkers or you more follow just like carving community, but I don't know if you know Bao at all.
I don't know. Maybe if I've seen their work. Yeah.
So he's like a fine furniture maker, right?
Right.
But he also has these amazing photography and videography skills where everything is so sleek, and he'll have these insane close-ups, and they're just gorgeous. You can see the rotation of the device, whatever tool he's using, and the sawdust is just chipping away, and it's just
and that's that's gold. Yeah, that's gold. Yeah, when you see that sawdust flying off, it's like, I want that.
Yeah.
But how do I do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still using my phone right now, and because I spent so much time in the 2 years before Reels became a thing, that I spent so much time trying to get my photography game up.
Yeah.
I invested in the camera and all the setup, and then gone. So then it's like, okay, now what do I do, right? So then I got the, same idea as what you said. I got the phone, and that was my first start. Get at least a decent phone. But then there's lighting and angles and editing, right? That's so far beyond my realm.
Well, That's why it's fun. So I do Saburrtooth's social media, but I also do the social media for Workbench Con. It's a conference in
Oh, okay.
Atlanta
Yep.
and Haven Conference. So I got to go to my first Workbench Con this year. It
Right.
was so fun because they teach those kind of classes that you're just talking about.
Really?
Yeah, you literally can go there. They're going to have somebody who does this professionally, and they will teach you step by step of what they do, how they build their they go into depth, like making frames and all this and drawing out a
Right.
storyline. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
I have access to that kind of community. I mean,
Mhm.
living where I do on the far east coast of Canada,
Yeah.
in the country, which like around here, country is like really country.
Yeah.
So don't have
How many
access to
acres
those.
do you have?
4. Yeah. How many acres and how many cord of wood?
Right.
That's usually the
That's the
question, right?
questions.
Yeah. But see, we don't have like, we obviously have a community, and there's a carving community and things like that here. But it's still quite a distance to travel to get to any of that. But we don't have these big conferences, obviously, like
Right.
maybe in Ontario, like in central Canada, there'd be some of that stuff, but it's not the same accessibility. It would be,
Yeah.
a 5 or 6 hour flight for me, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Not
So
the
it's
worst.
yeah, no, that's right. But it's cool that you can go to those because like all of us are sitting here on, online, whether it's through Instagram or Zoom or whatever it may be, and we don't get to interact in person.
Exactly.
And it's a completely different world. And I found that out from interacting with my local wood carving community.
Mhm.
So this year was my first year going to the Nova Scotia Wildlife Woodcarvers Association show.
Oh, that's cool.
So
I
I
know
got
you
to
were at a
meet.
show.
Yeah, so I got to meet a lot of the local carvers, which like some of them are world-class carvers. Yeah, it's very old school. So they're not online, they're not posting things
Right.
like that. But you look at their work and it's like unreal. But it's nice to be able to connect with those people in person.
No, totally. That's really cool that you have something like that. So where you have that, we don't have anything like that around here. Like,
Really?
yeah, carving's not very popular, at least that I know of in my area.
Yeah.
More in like New York and the Adirondacks. There, it's very popular. Like we just had Hillstick Kyle from Hillstick
Right. Yep.
Furniture, and like that's their bread and butter is just like making animals, bears and things like that.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody wants that lives in that area. Is everybody wants their little bear on their doorstep, and like
right. Yeah, and we get the same thing here, right?
Yeah.
Like chainsaw carving, obviously in a place that's full, in a country area.
Yeah.
It's big, but it's more of like side of the road. Like these people aren't on Instagram or on any kind of social media, but like, oh, this guy sits on this corner and he sells his like gigantic eagles that are unbelievable, but nobody's ever heard of them, just locally, right?
There is a street I would pass every day on my ride home from work, and I'd always look over there to see what he put out. I'm just like, and again, like I don't know if he's on Instagram. I've never found him. But for years, I just like, ooh, what's he put out today? Like, what did he make? I've been obsessed with that for years, so I think it's really cool that you have the access right there. And
yeah. And I think maybe it might just be a combination of being from a smaller area, and, with an older population that a lot of them aren't on social media. And it really surprised me when I went to the wood carving competition. And I started asking around. I'm saying, like, oh, where do you guys sell your work at? And they're like, sell? What are you talking about? Like, I don't sell this stuff. Like, so you just put 500 hours into that piece, and it's just going to sit. And they're like, yeah, no problem, right? Like, so it's just there's a disconnect there.
Yeah,
it's not like maybe with the younger generation, we're more like, okay, in order for me to justify doing this many hours a day, I need to make something off of it, right?
Right. Yeah, it's less of a hobby. We always want to turn it into a business.
Yeah, and just because the materials and like, as tools, electricity, a lot of people don't keep that into account, like that, my electricity bill for all these power tools and maintaining my tools, right? Like, I didn't just walk into a shop full of tools.
Yeah.
I started with nothing, right? And built my way up. So it's, it's definitely funny when people put all this work into something and then they have zero interest in selling it. And I kind of like, I kind of envy that idea of like that they can put that much time into something and don't care to sell it. And because it's almost like they're really in it for the passion.
That's going to be you in 30 years. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
When it's just like, this is what I do to relax myself now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done trying to make money off of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. I'll just be some guy in the woods in a cabin filled with wooden mushrooms.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what I started as.
Yeah.
Right.
You just started making them, and eventually, did you have like a whole room full of them? Because it had to look so cool.
Oh yeah. I had tons of them. Because I was just, what happened was I got some wood from a neighbor of mine who's a professional woodworker.
Oh, nice.
He cleaned out his shop to be able to move it. Well, of course, every woodworker has pounds of scrap wood sitting around. And he said, "Oh, you can have it, right?" And it was all like blood wood and purple heart and fine mahoganies and all these really exotic woods. And so I said, "Okay, I'll do something with them eventually." And then just kind of one thing led to the next, and that's how I started carving in the first place. Trying to use up this wood. Like I can't let that sit. Right.
So would you buy to try? Did you get like a Dremel or something?
Yeah, well, I got a rotary tool that's from a Canadian company called King Canada, and it's just like your $40 set with all your bits.
An easy getting started. Yeah.
You get 500 bits with it, and I've got sitting over with my tools. I've got about 8 of them because I've burnt through them.
Yeah.
Like I would use them, I would burn them out and buy another one, and burn them out, buy another one, and I did that I just got my Fordham earlier this year.
I see that guy hanging behind.
Yeah, and I still got the King.
Hey.
I still got the cheapie because it does the job. Yeah, it does the job, right? Yep. It still works. So, but yeah, I mean, I was never really interested in like trying to get some big setup. It was more of like, just get what works, right? Mm-hmm. So I think with certain tools you can get away with that, like rotary tools. Yeah. Especially just starting out, you really can. I tell that to people all the time. You don't need anything fancy.
Yeah, just buy something that you can afford. Yeah. Whatever your affordable level is, grab something there and just get started. Because you got to know if you like it or not.
That's it.
Yeah.
And really, like, they're good quality, like for what they cost.
Yeah.
The reason I went to a Fordham is just because, for one, I'm burning them out, and I've almost spent that much, on the cheap ones. But, on top of that, it gives you a bit more. Once you get into more complex stuff, it does give you more, being able to use 1/4-inch shank and things like that, right? Which is not necessarily, I don't know if there's cheaper tools that do 1/4-inch.
No, there's only the die grinder. So it's either like, you got to upgrade. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I have die grinders, but they're pneumatic, so they run off air, and they're just not powerful enough.
Yeah, I don't like any air power tools. Not a fan.
No. Yeah. Well, see, my day job is I'm a mechanic, right? Yep. Yeah. So like pneumatic is like my everything. Everything I own, pretty much you live and die by air.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had all this stuff, but it was not exactly what I needed, right? But it's nice to have that. Also, just having the pen attachment and all these different. Your torque too. Like now I can actually turn the tool down instead of having to like max it
all the time. Yeah.
I don't think I ever used the dial on the cheap ones. It was on max the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Just because you need that torque, right? Mm-hmm. So that's probably why I burnt them out. But yeah.
Use your air. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
At least for myself. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and the only thing that I had to invest in bigger that I found really made a difference was a bandsaw.
Yeah, just get everything prepped for your carvings.
Yeah, just because like a lot of the woods I do use are exotic and super dense. Like I don't know if I know there's some carvers that work with denser woods like that, but it is a whole other ball game.
Yeah, I've never carved anything like that.
Yeah, they're painful, right? They're just they want to burn all the time. They're hard to cut. So
what kind of burrs do you use on them then? What grit is the best for something that hard?
Well, they all work. I started it.
All right.
Yeah, they all do work. It's just a matter of like how much wood you can take off at once.
Yeah.
So like a lot of what I do ahead of time before I start carving is I try to take as much off on the disc sander, belt sander. Mm-hmm. So I try to just eliminate as much wood as I can with my sander and my bandsaw. So
That makes sense.
For example, with the mushrooms, when I'm to the point that I'm actually carving, there's not a whole lot of wood to take off. It's more of like rounding and making smooth transitions and things. So I started with the whisper bits.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a sweet clue about bits. I said, oh, these look great, right? And but they worked fantastic, and I used those for about a year before I even got another set. Because I didn't even know that what's the use of getting.
Yeah. Why should I try? Why should I deviate if this is working already?
Yeah, like I didn't understand the possibilities. So once I started delving into the more coarse grits, I started understanding, oh, that's what these are for, right? Your whispers are last. But I think just the quality of them really, like, it showed through, because I mean, the woods that I'm working with, they wear out bandsaw blades, they wear out disc belt sander, everything. They wear out everything. Yep. So the fact that I still have those original bits and I still use them, and this is 3 years later almost, right?
It's crazy. I know.
Yeah.
I said the same thing. Mine are almost 4 years old now, and I still use them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, like when you're using something like, say, bloodwood, the harder you push and the faster you go, the more it wants to burn.
Right.
So it's just more of like, you have to adapt your methods. They will work. Just you have to be a little more gentle.
Yeah.
Now I can just go hard. Well, you've probably seen some of my videos. I got the whole bit set out.
Yeah.
I'm just like going to town.
I know I've made a comment.
Yeah.
It, like you have your whole arsenal out for this one. I think it's actually, was it for that one that you got right there behind you, actually?
Yeah. The bee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't have a sweet clue of how to approach it. That's the first time that I've carved into something, I guess you'd call it. Like, it's not really like relief style. So I wasn't really sure how to go about it. And, I had the 1/4-inch bits. I really wanted to use those. I hadn't had a chance to really like do a project with them.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to attack them with these, with the big boys. But then I said, okay, well, maybe I'll bring in the little bits. And so I had them all in front of me, because I was like, I didn't quite have my workflow down. So I'd go 1/4-inch, 1/8-inch, 1/4-inch, 1/8-inch, jump back and forth, right? By the time I was finished, I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. You had a method. Well, now you know. And I feel like that's just like the start of your experimentation. I don't know if I'm speaking. Yeah, it feels like it is. It's like, because now you see that possibility, and it's like, what if I wanted to incorporate epoxy or something else? Or what if I want to do this,
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the big thing, is that like this whole thing is just a big journey. Mm-hmm. It's one big experiment. Yeah. I have zero clue what I'm doing. Never have. Yeah. And you know what I mean? I'm just learning a little bit each day. Mm-hmm. And, I know about tools, but I don't know about wood carving, or I didn't. And so I'm trying to learn more and more about it. And I mean, obviously, like the community, the online community, the Saburrtooth community is a huge help, because you can kind of see how people approach a project, right? Yep. Whether it's big or small.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, right? Yep. They're a game changer, because, maybe I'll look at a piece that someone's making on there, and it might be 10 times the size, but we both approach it the same way. Yeah. Right. And so like blocking out and things like that. So that's how I learned a lot about, why have other bits. And, so then it's been, okay, well, maybe I'll get this set and see what that can do. And that's how I've kind of been expanding my bit set, is just from seeing other people and what they can do.
I agree. There's so many different shapes and sizes that I want to try now, because I'm like, never thought of going that large, or, for something. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
It is. Yeah. And I just ordered another set like a few days ago. Yeah. Yeah. Because I was like, whoa, because I have coarse in the 1/4-inch, but I don't have extra coarse in 1/8.
Got you.
Right. And I was using my fine set to do the honeycomb, and it worked great, but it just like, it was taking longer. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, well, again, I didn't know. So I thought, okay, well, I'll get the extra course, and on the next project, I'll focus on trying to use those and see what they can do. Yeah, right. Exactly. So it's all one big experiment, because I'm learning what the tool can do while making the project. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be doing that actually very soon. First Saburrtooth is kind of just experimenting and recording what I'm doing and
That's
kind
cool.
of
Yeah.
just like talking about my experience. And I'm going to be trying it with hardwoods, which I never carve with. So it's like a complete, like you said, experiment
Yeah. Yeah.
of just finding out what they do. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And that's the only way you can know your limitations, right?
Yeah.
And know what, like, okay, maybe there's a technique or something, that you could, that you can use on the next project.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened with the honeycomb is like the skills I've learned in making that honeycomb, I can apply to my future projects, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely handy. I get a new bit set, and not only does it give me more versatility, but I'll probably learn some stuff from it.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
The tools kind of teach you, really.
Yeah.
Right?
And you do some really fun things. Like what made you concentrate on like the insects? I'm curious. Because you started with mushrooms, and I think that must be just because of where you live. I did look up like the Acaidian forest.
Yes.
And kind of just like figure out like where you're from and kind of what your ecosystem is like. And it's pretty cool. Just like it's just a deep sheltered valley with coastal fringes, very low lands. I was like, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it sounds romantic, but it's
read between the lines there. It's like it's wet.
Yeah. We're surrounded on three sides by water. That's what they're trying to say.
That's what they're trying to, exactly.
Fancy way of saying peninsula. Yeah. No, and that's the Acadian forest inspired me originally, and I do have a background in plant science and mycology from school, so I kind of already had that like anatomy and naturalist views. So once I had done that for I did it for 2 years almost before I decided, okay, I wanted to expand and try something different.
Yep.
And the way I kind of evolved into that was the cordyceps fungus, which is the type of parasitic fungus that grows on insects.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so zombie ants.
Very organic and
yeah. So it's like I went from mushrooms to mushrooms and bugs, right? Yeah. So, but and cordyceps is like not really well known, but a lot of people have heard the zombie ant.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've heard of the zombie ant.
Yeah, so that's been making its rounds on pop culture, social media stuff. So I wanted to do one of those, and then that one turned into 6. So 6 bugs later, I said, you know what? I really like this. I enjoy it, and it's different.
It's a lot of fun shapes too. Like as I was watching the video of you just making the body parts, Yeah. You seem to really have like a groove with it now of how you get it going.
Yes. Yeah, and you know what? Like my whole style is kind of like impressionism. So I don't go for ultra realism. So I'm kind of like focusing on the forms themselves, which a lot of carvers do, right? Most carvers are focused on the form. It's kind of that idea that if you squint your eyes, you can tell what it is right away. You know what I mean? So, and I really love like, right. And like insects have super interesting forms, like their body shapes, and like a wasp, for example. People hate wasps, but when you start looking at the curvatures of their bodies and how they all fit together, it's quite beautiful, right? Yeah. So that was kind of the original inspiration. And that's kind of led me down the trail. Like I said, it's all an experiment. So, I'm all like, okay, well, I'll try this next, right? But I'll never get rid of mushrooms.
No, I think they should be somewhere in a piece too. Like, just popping out somewhere because it's like your signature.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I do. And then because I do the markets too, as Acadian mushrooms. So like the mushrooms are still my like thing, right?
Yep. Especially
locally, like I'm known locally like kind of as the mushroom man. So like I can't really like switch now. But it's nice to be able to do different stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just let the sawdust fly and see what happens. And that's kind of where the honeybee project started. There's no drawing, just go at it. I got the donut wheel. The course. I got the course donut wheel, and that was my first time using a wheel, and that's like kind of where it all began, right?
That's what I started with, was the wheels.
Oh, really?
I love them. Yeah, recently started using like the actually rotary burrs and stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah. And I started, when I used that wheel, I was like, my head exploded. I was like, this can do this? Like, really? Like, wow. Okay. Well, that just changed everything. Right. Especially like even simple stuff like strip and bark.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I thought that it was going to be, you know, like anything, you get into the wood and it's like, okay, here's a hard grain, soft grain, whatever. I went right into maple, right? So
yeah.
Usually, a bother to work with. And it just, I could have just let go of the wheel when it ate right through. So I was totally impressed. And now it's like all these little things start popping my head. Oh, well, you can, maybe I could do this. And right. Because I'm always finding wood. Like I'm a collector. Probably you are too. Like
I have a problem.
Yeah, yes, I do have a problem, and I've got massive amounts of stuff that not only I've been given, but I find in the woods. So I'll find like something looks like it might be a decent burl, and I'll throw that in the shop, and that's and that's what happened with the honeybee piece, right? The big burl that was on it. I seen this burl kind of laying on the ground. And it was just like a piece of deadwood, a tree that had fallen over. And I said, oh, well, I'll take that home. And that was a year and a half ago. So, but I didn't have a way to work on them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like chainsaws overkill, right? And
yeah.
Like where else do you go, right? And I didn't know about wheels. So now I know. And I'm quite happy.
I say, and they make anything possible. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
There's nothing intimidating because it's like, I can just take my wheel to that.
Well, that's it. And even like you probably seen when I was doing the honeybee, I kind of changed the honeycomb. I changed my idea a little bit of the shape. And instead of like, oh, what do I do now? It's just like pull the wheel out, take a bit off here, take a bit off here, and saves you. It's because it's such an odd shape. I couldn't use it on the belt or the disc sander or the bandsaw, right? Without making some kind of jig, So the wheel's handy for that. Just right, knock a bit off here and there. So I had a real like doing the sweeping curves and things like that. That I love seeing. I love seeing everybody on Saburrtooth putting out these beautiful curves and it's amazing what people can do with those wheels.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my most popular like edge requests is when I do like the super, super twisted where it looks like a Twizzler almost.
Yes.
That's what people usually, if they're going to get a custom sign, they want that kind of an edge on it.
Yeah. And I think
but it's really easy.
Yeah.
But you got to upcharge for it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but you gotta take into account all the time and mistake it took for you to figure out how to do that. Right.
Super easy now. Now I can just go like, pop, then it comes out. I always do the movement and feel like such a fool, but it's like then I just go like this.
Yeah. Right. Just like a wave on the ocean, right? Yeah. No, it's really neat what people like the things that people figure out how to do because it does. Maybe you say it's easy, but like even me as a carver looking at it, I was like, whoa, that's so far beyond what I can do, right?
Yeah, I'll be teaching it in New York.
Okay, just hold on, let me book a flight. Yeah, let me start the drive. I'm not that far from New York, actually.
See, hey.
Right, I'm just around the corner from Maine.
Okay, yeah. See,
like we literally have a ferry that's like about 2 hours from here that goes from here to Bar Harbor. So
it sounds like you're already on your way.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. Like anyone who does something repeatedly, like you could say those bees are now easy for you.
Yeah.
You've done them so many times, but somebody to pick it up and try to do that again themselves, it's just like, oh.
Yes. 100. Yeah. And like the mushrooms, right? It's just the very simplest mushroom. It's easy for me now, right? Because I've got my workflow down pat and all those things. Like I know what to do. I know what order to do it in, and I know all the little things.
Right.
But
I'm curious, what is your order? Because you don't want to have the tops pop off.
Yeah. So I basically, like I said, I use the belts disc sander.
Okay.
So I shape but I just cut a little square.
Yeah, and then just kind of
shape it into a circle.
Yep.
And I kind of grind the edges down to kind of create that like conical shape. And then I'll bring it over to the carving tool, and I'll start carving in like if I want to go any further, smoothing out those, then I can carve in my gills. And then the stems, I don't use the carving tool with those. I just do those on the belt disc sander, and then I use a orbital sander.
Yep.
So
I'd be so scared I'd break them.
Well, see, they can break. I use basswood for those, so you got a little bit of flexibility, right? Like that's my basswood use there. But yeah, I've done it lots of times, like, and with, doesn't matter what I'm making, and you get so far and snap. Right. And that happens all the time. Like, and something's completely finished and then snap. Yeah. Right. Like the bugs that was the whole thing, right? Trying to figure out how to make all these little tiny pieces without breaking them. So that's basically how I create my workflow, is so that I don't screw up so much.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Right. So, but with the mushrooms, I epoxy them together, right?
Oh, okay.
So I just get like cheap dollar store epoxy, 2-part epoxy, and works great for me. It's only like $1.50, and crystal clear. So I just use that, and I try to peg things together with steel rod as much as I can. So I evolve things over time. Like with the insects, I originally made the legs out of wood. Which, as you can imagine, was incredibly frustrating and difficult and time-consuming, and everything negative. Taking little tiny things and drilling little tiny holes in them, trying to put pins and it was a mess. And I did that. So I did that like 6 times and figured, okay, that's enough of that. And so I started actually making the legs out of the steel rod that I use for pegging my mushrooms together.
Super smart. I also really want to see you record a reel of you just doing tiny little hand motions.
Yes, I'll just have to mute it because it'd be like a lot of cursing.
You just play like a nice orchestra song.
Everyone's like, "Oh, you make that look so easy," and in reality, I'm like fuming. Right? Yeah, I'm doing it right now actually, because like with the rod, with steel, like you're carving the steel. And then you get it so small that like if you bend it a little bit too far, it cracks, snap. So it does the same thing as wood. It's just you don't have to make it out of so many parts, right? Each leg is one piece. But I'm working on them right now, and I snapped 2 this afternoon already.
So are you telling me it's leg day today?
Yeah. It's leg day. Yeah. Leg day. It's leg right now. I've got all the bees made, so it's gonna be leg day for a few days. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's another thing with the workflow, right? Is just do everything all in one step, and it adds a bit more consistency, I find, too.
I'm sure, and I feel it was so rewarding. At the end, you have a pile of done things.
Yes.
Like if you're piecing them together one at a time, it's probably got to seem like so much more work to get to that point, It's like
it is. Yeah, and when you start doing like. It can be more monotonous this way, right? Because like I was saying on one of my reels, like I've got 12 bees, that's 72 legs. That's a lot, a lot of carving, a lot of bending, a lot of painting. And then each leg, because they're all sitting differently on the base, each leg has to be positioned correctly. So that means the bees got to go back in that exact position. Oh, yeah. Right. And then you have to mount it on there. So it's like a lot of messing around, but if the bees are already made, it makes the whole assembly process easier. Instead of making one bee full, attaching that, and then making another bee full, attaching that, it's kind of like I've got all the bees in front of me, and I've just got to kind of arrange their legs and things like that, right? So it's definitely the most frustrating process, but like you said, it's also the most rewarding. Right. Because I can see it coming. I'm like, okay, it's actually moving forward, right? That's sometimes the hardest part is like patience, right?
No, exactly. Like I'll spend a day and like just dedicate. Okay, today is a carving day for like the CNC. Like I'm just gonna sit there and I'm gonna throw things on the CNC, And while that's going on the other side, I'm going to add edges to the ones that just came off of the CNC. So
Right.
you become like this little factory worker, but
yeah,
in the end, I'll have a stack ready to be sanded and then ready to go downstairs and get painting. Like,
yeah.
Then I can have a paint week, and that's just glorious.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Once you finish that whole pile, you're like, yeah, I don't want to touch that for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's a design week.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, but it's so rewarding though when you actually get that workflow down.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, I know what I've got to do. Like when I go into the shop today, I know what's got to be done. And that's cool. Like even with a new project where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know the steps to get me there. Yeah. And it helps so much, right?
Yeah. Like for me, like design is always like that big thing that is like starting to gear it up. Like, okay. And like you start thinking about whatever you're going to make for a week or so. And, you just get it in your head. Then you start designing it. And once you get to actually cut the wood, like that's so exciting. But like, there's a lot of planning and mental thought that goes into everything before we actually touch it. I mean, sometimes you just go and you just play. And that's but
yeah. And it's kind of half sometimes, right? You're like, I put a lot of thought and planning. I mean, I may not write things down or do a sketch. Like a lot of it's just in my head. I know what I want it to look like. It's all mental, but it's like nice to go through that process and look back and say, oh, there's where it started with this, and that by the end it looks completely different. But it's going out and playing that brought you to that finished product, right? So it's nice to kind of have both, have that design, but that play almost creates a life of its own, right?
It does. No, that's fun. I never actually talk about that part. Is just like how much time we all spend in our head thinking about something before we actually do it. And
I
know some people call it procrastination, but to me, it's just like I'm not ready to tackle it yet. Like, you just gotta keep thinking of how I want to do it, because you don't want to waste any kind of product. Like, you don't want to waste a piece of wood, especially now how much it costs. You really want to keep your material waste to a minimum. So I spend more time sometimes just thinking.
And oh, for sure. And especially like with what you do, that you're like, when I waste a piece of wood, it's like an inch long. You know what I mean?
24 by 24 is my normal size now.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have anything in this shop that's 24 by 24. It's all little pieces, right? But like the bees, all of the bees are made from 5 pieces of curly maple that are maybe like they're knife handle stock. I got a bunch of old knife handle stock from a guy that used to be a knife maker. So he gave me like bins full of like curly maple. So they're all in these like knife blocks. So I used 5 of those blocks to make all those bees.
Now that you mentioned about like how tiny the pieces of wood that you have in your shop are, I'm now seeing like, oh, behind you are your like stacks of wood. They're just in containers. Yeah,
they're all like that's just like the stuff I use on a daily basis. But then I have like a whole corner of like big Rubbermaid bins that are full to the brim. Like, like I said, I get a lot of stuff off of other woodworkers now. Like that's kind of become my thing now.
That's great.
And it's pretty cool because it's all from connections that I've made. So like at the local markets that we have here, we have, we have some pretty big markets in Halifax, the capital city. So it has 500,000 people there. So it is a fairly big city. Yeah. And so that means you get a lot of woodworkers that collect there, and they see what I do and they're like, oh, hey, I got some scrap.
And
I'm like,
it's nice.
Yeah, I'm there.
I see people who are contractors and stuff, and the things that they throw away are like gold to me,
Yeah.
Like, I could have made something really cool with that. And you with how small you can go,
Well, that's it. And like, there's a guy, I just got some at a market I was at there a few weeks ago, and he makes a lot of like cutting boards and things like that. But he uses a lot of the types of woods that I use, right? So he's doing like the stripe boards and things like that, Paduke and lace wood and things like that. Well, you always have at the end of your glue up, you always have 2-3 inches that's, maybe not glued very well or whatever. And he saves all those. So they're all partially laminated. They could never be used as a laminated piece, but I just break them all apart and I have all these tiny little pieces of all these exotic woods. So it's and they're happy because not only they get rid of some junk in their shop, but it's going to good use. Right. It's not just going to sit around. It'll actually be made into art. So I think everybody kind of wins there, and I'll give them something like a piece of art or something like that for it as well. Like, I always try to make it fair.
Exactly. I totally get that.
Yeah. So
if people do me a favor, I usually go like, my website is fully stocked. What would you like? Like a great bargaining thing.
Yeah. I'm always giving away mushrooms. Like, I had a film crew come here for a local TV show, and there was like 8 of them, and they filmed all day here, and they were so nice. And at the end of the day, I gave them all a mushroom each, and their head was just like, their mind was blown. And I was like, yeah, I got all kinds of them. And like, I appreciate what you do. Right. Like, so like, here, take a mushroom. Right. But that's it. I can't give them to family anymore because they've got too many.
Yeah.
Like, that's got old. Now I've got to make stuff.
I'd say now they actually want like what you're currently working on, the more involved pieces. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Grandma might not want a wasp, but she likes the ladybug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite so far when you've been experimenting with them? Like what's been your favorite experiment?
I think the wasp.
Yeah.
Because that, like, it's just so out there, and I kind of like it because people don't like it. You know what I mean?
Like it.
Well, and I don't mean they don't like. Yeah, they don't. It's not that they don't like the art. I get that same comment that's like, I love it, but I hate it, or I love it, but I want to smash it. Right? Like,
it evokes a feeling in them.
Yeah, and I think that's what art is meant to do. It doesn't necessarily have to be a good feeling, but it invokes.
Yeah.
Like, and with wasps, it's something very visceral. Yeah. Just like a snake or anything like that, right? And to have it so big, and to be able to see all the parts on it, it's like, some people are and I like that. I like that idea that it's like, oh, this thing I'm making like actually invokes a physical reaction in people. It may not be a good reaction, but still. So I think to be able to create something from nothing and create a reaction in someone that's so strong is like, oh wow, I did that. Like, so really that kind of stuff's cool, right? Like that's a good feeling. Like, so, and I get the same thing with, with mushrooms and other things like that. But I think the wasp, with the technical difficulty and everything like that, that was definitely my favorite.
It's a really cool piece.
Thank you. Yeah.
I know I mentioned on a couple of the episodes about how I can't stop sharing your pieces and how I'm a tech person, but they're just so well done. And like you said, you're not trying to go hyper realistic.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes them so cool, is that
they're
an art form rather than just a reproduction, So.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like, sometimes you can get lost in the detail. And I mean, in the carving world, the biggest thing when it comes to any kind of wildlife is proportion, right?
Yeah. And
proportion's huge because proportion makes or breaks the whole piece.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to focus on the most, is proportion. So, and then on top of that, there's certain details you do have to add in. And I find, like there's certain things that I could take away from, say, the honeybee, and it doesn't look like a honeybee anymore. Like when I add the antenna, right? You add those, big difference, right? Yeah. The little stripes on its back, big difference, right? And so there's some things that I've learned that, maybe 2 or 3 details that I have to add into the piece to really make it show what it is. But I try not to get too in depth because you kind of get lost in it, and then it muddies. You know what I mean? Like it kind of muddies the whole thing.
How big are they? Like the final pieces?
The bees can fit right in my hand.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well,
I mean, but the wasp would probably be about twice that size. So the wasp, we're saying probably about like 6-7 inches long total. Yeah. And this is the smallest I've ever done.
Is it? Okay. That thing is that is small.
Yeah.
I imagine you could overwork it to where you're adding the details and then it doesn't look like what you were trying to go for.
Yeah.
If we're going large scale, then you kind of forces you to add more details because you're seeing it so, at a grander size.
Exactly. And you need something for your eye. It's kind of like that art thing. You need something for your eye to focus on. Right? Your eyes got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's the same as the honeycomb. You can't kill it. Like I wanted to leave that big, pretty burrow in there for a couple of reasons. One, because it's so beautiful, and rare. But two, if it was just one big solid thing, a honeycomb, then all those lines in the background would take away from the bees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
It's stuff that you think about ahead of time after you've done it a few times. Like, it's not like I actively think about it. It's almost like subconscious that I know, keep it simple, right? Do it simple, but really well. Like I like, obviously, as you've seen, I do my finishes like to a high degree.
Yeah, you do.
And like, I could take anything and finish it to a high degree and it'll look nice. Right. So I'd rather keep it simple, but done really well, quality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Your finishes are awesome. And they make the colors of the woods just pop like insane.
Yeah. And that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right. Like the wood's so beautiful. That's why I don't use paint. I just use the torch. Right. I just use the torch for black, and I use aniline dye for the color. Yeah. Yeah. So I used to use food coloring, just like grocery store food coloring.
Really?
Yeah. It works great.
Enough? Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. You mix it with methyl hydrate, with methanol. Yeah. And it penetrates, it's not as clear as aniline. Like aniline dyes are like kind of the best stain you can get. But
Look into these things.
Yeah. The aniline dyes have really like been wicked for stuff like curly, which, curly, like sometimes it's hard to really get that curl to pop.
Yeah.
And I just sand it down and then put that aniline dye on it. And once you clear coat it, it's just like, wow, it's like a jewel. So I've really enjoyed that, right? Like that clarity. But yeah, the whole goal at the end is that you can look at it and tell it's made of wood.
Right.
But not in a bad way, like not in the way that it looks like a block of wood, but in the way it's like,
ooh, that's wood.
Yeah. So I get that comment a lot at markets that when people stand far back from my pieces, they think they're ceramic until they get up close and see the wood grain. So I really enjoy that kind of that feature of them that, the wood's kind of hidden, but not.
Yeah, no, you just see the colors, you see the shape and the colors from a distance, I'm sure. Because I've seen some of your setups and you do a really great job. Is it your first year doing the shows, you said?
Yeah, I just started last October was my first show.
How's it going?
It's good. Yeah, it's good. I really enjoy it. Like I'm part of the craft guild here and things like that. So, I'm getting more involved in the local art communities and stuff, which is huge, right? To meet, but it's also nice to go there and like interact with just everyday people, which is like you spend 3 days talking about something you love to do. Like, how can you say that's bad in any way, shape, or form?
No, absolutely.
It's not about the money. It's like I spend all this time there and getting into these like deep conversations with people and I enjoy it. It's really fun. And it's like an educational thing. People, you get to teach people about mushrooms or about insects or about wood carving.
Yeah. Right.
That's a big one too, right?
You get to see people's interests get piqued.
Yeah.
I always heard like when I used to do shows, I've always wanted to do that, and they're like, you see people just like, oh, like, and you wonder if they actually go home and try it,
Well, that's it. And they're in the same position as me where they don't even know where to start.
Right.
So I tell them, cheap Dremel tool. And I said, spend your money on places like Saburrtooth. Yeah. That's where you want to spend your money because all the other carving bits, instead of going out and buying them, just buy another carving tool. You get 200 of them for free, right? Yeah. Spend your money on the things like burr bits. A lot of people don't even know they exist. When they first start out, right? Because they're not standard.
You can't get them in the stores,
That's right. Especially around here, like we have Lee Valley here, but they sell some stuff, but it's not, like as carving is.
It's specialized tools, just like CNCs too.
Yes.
So it's interesting. You can't just go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get a CNC bit. You can get generic router bits, but you can't get the CNC bits that you need. So
Yeah,
it is interesting. I mean, it must be too costly, I would imagine, to actually have a
to
shop
stock.
especially. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just like people aren't buying it. Like if you go look at the Dremel case, there's like maybe one bit somebody buys, like, you know, it's probably a diamond bit, you know, like, but as for carving bits, like they're few and far between, right? And that's why I would have never known about burr bits at all if it was not for Saburrtooth social media, the presence on Instagram, honestly, because
Really,
that's
cool.
how I learned about burr bits, was from seeing, you know what I mean? It was like back when I first started, it was like something recommended to me, or I seen somebody post about Saburrtooth, and then
like this. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, right. And so I got into the community and seeing what other people were doing, and then realized like, oh, okay, I'm missing out here. Like, you know, I was just using like gouge bits.
Yeah, I literally same thing. I saw another maker using it, and I was just like, you know, I'm very inquisitive. Message them immediately. What's that?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly, right. And that was coincidentally right when they launched the Whisper bits.
I say
right?
Perfect timing.
Yeah, February 2020, I think it was, or somewhere around there. And so that was also like, I was only into carving for like 3 months by that time, so I was like brand new to it. And but that, you know, completely changed because I bought the starter kit, so I had 4 bits to play with, and I love this so much. That's all I buy now is starter kits. Because it's like, instead of buying individual bits, I always buy a starter kit, because it's like, I love ball nose. Like ball nose is my go-to, right? Yep. Cylinders as well, right? But the bud and the flame, I've come to love them. And then the taper, right? So like they all have their individual uses.
Yep.
You know, and you get your preferences, like whether you use dovetail or whatever, but or the sphere. But as long as you have them there, you can use them. So now it's like, if I'm going to buy one, I might as well buy 4.
I like that. And
yeah, it's just like,
no, it's smart.
Yeah, in my mind, tools are always justified spending money.
Well, especially
that's what I tell myself
too. You know what I mean? Like you're surrounded by always having some, whether it's a wrench or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah, well, that's it. As a mechanic, you're a tool collector anyway. That's your livelihood is tools, right? Yeah. So it's not a weird thing for me to collect tools. Yeah. But definitely, like, yeah, you know, buying one bit is great if that's all you can get. But I'm like, now if I tell people, I'm like, go buy your cheap Dremel, your cheap rotary tool, and get the starter kit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and go, and then just see what happens.
Yeah. I can, by the way, relate to you because my father is a mechanic. So I grew up with a very well-stocked garage always.
Yes. Yeah. That's handy, eh? Yeah.
It is. It is. Like, I got to learn since a child of like, no, don't go buy it. You make it, you know, or you don't hire somebody, you fix it yourself. So
that's right. Yeah. And it's mentality, like having that tool, like mindset. I think that's probably the reason why I've developed my skills so much in woodworking or in wood carving and woodworking, is because I already had the tool base. I already had, you know what I mean? I knew how to use everything, and I, you know what I mean? So it was more of just going to the next step with it, right?
Yeah, and it makes sense too of why you took the wood on that was offered to you, knowing like you were gonna put it to use, like you were just gonna take it and it was just gonna sit there. No. Now that now you justified you to go get some more tools, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. No, somebody gives me wood, it's like I'm like literally, it's like gold.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm like a kid, like, you know, I feel like that 5-year-old kid again at Christmas, just like rip the packaging off, right? Like, what's in here? You know, like, you know, it's kind of like when you like would go look for records at the used store, and like you're looking for that like one, you know, original pressing or whatever. It's the same idea. You're going through, you're like, oh, look at this, you know. Yeah, exactly. You feel like a little kid, right? And it's the same thing when I get something new, when I get a package in the mail, a new tool or something. It's the same idea. It's like rip it out, find something to use it on.
Yeah. I actually have a new rotary tool I gotta try, and I just as my first day actually being full-time maker,
right? Yeah.
I'm like, I really want to play with that, but I'm like, I can't, not today, but maybe tomorrow. Like it's a possibility now, and it's so fun. I'm like, I could dedicate an hour just to playing with that tool.
Oh, I can totally see you getting hooked on rotary. You're not even going to care what the tool is because you're going to be so excited about what you're doing with it, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
like, especially texture, like it opens up this huge world.
It does. I feel like texture is something that a lot of people who make furniture have been really embracing lately. And
Yes.
It's cool
Yeah.
to see them experimenting and playing and getting
Oh.
I guess, a little wild, we'll say, because
Yes.
woodworking is such like a fine craft, everything's so precise, and then to go into something that's more natural, more organic, like the big deviation.
Oh, huge. That'd be like me moving into furniture or woodworking. Like, I couldn't draw a straight line to save my life.
Right.
I don't do straight lines, right? That's my whole thing is I don't do straight lines. But woodworkers look at it the same way as with carving or with something like that, is that
creative. Yeah,
right. And they say, how could you do it? But it's like, you could do it. I guarantee you could do it. It's just a matter of, getting out there and turning the tool on and working at it, right?
Same thing with painting. People are always like, how did you do that? And I'm like, one stroke at a time. Like, I don't know. You just do it.
Yeah. And if you really enjoy it, it really makes it that much easier. I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah. That, you know what I mean? You don't even notice the time go by. I mean, I might spend, when I'm done work every day, I come out here and I work for 3-4 hours during the week. And then on the weekends, I work 8-10 hours every day.
Awesome, what
that's it.
You have for it.
Yeah. But you know what? It's not like I'm trying to like run a business and I've got to do it. It's more of like, I'm excited. I want to get out here and like, I just want to get some, especially the honeycomb. I was like, because it was something new, right? And I was like, I couldn't wait to get back here and get carving, right?
And next one.
Yeah. About 10 minutes after I'm done this, then I'll be making something else. Yeah, it'll happen. I don't even know what it's going to be yet, but I know it'll happen. And again, it's just like when this is all over with and you're starting to kind of settle down and say, okay, this piece is finished. And then you're like, what's next?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Like you got that little voice in your head. What's next? What's next? Right. But it doesn't come from a place of like forcedness, right?
No, exactly.
It's passion.
Just going there because that's what you want to do. You want to move on to the next project. Yeah.
Especially having like, with you getting the rotary tool or with me getting the wheel, it's like, oh, this whole world just opened up and right. I want to see where this can go. Right. And I'm like looking at pieces of wood that I thought I couldn't do anything with. And now I'm like, ooh, right. Like what, right. There might be something there. Right.
Well, just think about how many like sticks that you could create from blocks of wood. If you have like long ones or something, you could make organic sticks out of them. And
that's, you just totally called it right there. Like that's definitely one of my things that like, because I do use a lot of natural material and I want to start trying to eliminate that just because of like, it's not always available.
Exactly. You got to find the perfect piece instead of create the perfect piece. Yeah.
Exactly. So at least now it's like I have this whole other possibility of just creating from scratch, right? And just like I said, like I find these burls and all these things in the woods, like I'm just like always had my eye on the forest floor that I might see something, right? So now it's like now I'm probably going to end up having twice as much wood sitting around, right?
Where do you store it all in your shop, or are you expanding out of your shop now? Yeah. Well,
I've got wood because you got it's all wood stove stuff here, so I've got wood sheds. So I use the wood sheds in the summer, and then the shop in the winter. So but because I have a wood stove, so I'll just kind of like build this like wall of chunks of wood around the wood stove, so they're always like kind of dry.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. That's your kiln.
yeah, that's essentially I was thinking I've seen the solar kilns. I was thinking about making one. But we only have
that would be cool.
It would totally, but like here we have like 9 months of winter, so like it makes it difficult. Yeah, exactly. That works in the summer, but in the winter it doesn't, right? So but like I've got stuff that's been drying for 2 years and I'll pick away at that, and I do not have a shortage of stuff to play with. So, and I'm excited. Yeah. You're always looking to the next thing because you're excited for the future, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it is absolutely. I have a whole wall of wood that I've been staring at for years, and I'm like, but I haven't used it, and I'm like, do I just part with this? Like, like
that's a hard. I can't say anything because like I keep scraps like the size of dimes because I'm like I want to make maybe make an offcut table or something like that. Like pour epoxy on a bunch of offcuts.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know, something, right? Like
no, absolutely.
So I've got containers full of these little tiny scraps of all these multicolored woods.
Follow I don't know if you do already, BM Sculptures. He's been doing a lot of epoxy with different organic woods in them, like different or hardwoods and stuff.
Really? Yeah, I love that stuff. It's crazy. Yeah, it's really mind-blowing. Like I'm sure you love it because running the social media for Saburrtooth, you get to like see all this stuff, right? Well, you have to, right? Like, but it's so cool. Yeah, it's your job, but it's like the coolest job.
It is.
Like you literally get to tell people how amazing they are. Like
it's so fun to like just make comments and chat with people, and I'll sometimes just like I like to tell people what I like about things. You know what I mean? Like why do I like it? Like what stands out? Because it's nice as an artist to hear that from myself, like what caught my eye,
Yes, you're 100% right. Yeah.
It's so fun to hear it.
Oh, for sure. Especially like, I appreciate anybody that says anything positive about my work, but it is nice to get something specific.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? Oh, okay, I'm on the right track. And especially from someone like you, who obviously, you know some stuff.
I know a little.
So, yeah, you might know a couple things, right? One or two. So it's nice from someone like you to be able to
know
say
another artist.
Specific.
Yeah.
It really,
It's a different. Someone told me that they're used to seeing comments and they're like, from brands and thinking that they were kind of inauthentic because they didn't know who the person was saying them.
100.
Know that, like, I thought, first of all, Saburrtooth is awesome and they let me be me on their channel.
Yeah.
Is unusual and outstanding.
Yeah.
But I think it adds that level of, they know, like you said, they know another artist is looking at their work, and someone who appreciates and knows the pain and love that went into that piece.
Yes. And
give it a comment.
Well, and then having a face or like a human presence, it really like adds to the fact that like you're not just like it's not like recycling things that they know that are going to do well. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're finding things and you're therefore showing it to all of us.
Yeah, exactly. I'm searching the hashtag. I'm not even like watching. I do watch what comes in the feed. I do.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, I'm also searching the hashtag in hopes to find new people.
Yeah.
And I follow everybody who's carving. I don't care what they're carving or their skill level. The fact that you're out there carving. Doing what you love. I want to watch you grow. I want to see where you started, and I want to watch you grow. So and that's the amazing thing, right? Like
it's about watching someone's journey, right? And then connecting them with a community, which is massive. Because being out there on your own solitary, I mean, that's fine, right? If that's what you want to do, but entering into that community and then having you as kind of that thoroughfare for doing it, it really it's a positive experience, I think, for everybody involved, right? For not just I mean, it's positive for me because I'm seeing what other people are doing and I'm like, wow, it doesn't matter what skill level. Right. It's just like bringing all these different things to the table and everybody has something that they're passionate about. So it's like, you're really opening up all these people to the world, and it's pretty cool. Like, because obviously there is a big following and there is a big community. So
huge,
and probably one of the most supportive communities that I've ever been a part of. Like local, worldwide, or otherwise. I've never
to ship everywhere they can.
It's
so unusual for a company,
Yes, and then just to have that, like I said, it's like. I mean, we deal with this in Canada a lot, is that like, obviously because the States is so high, is so much bigger, and that like we're kind of forgotten about. And I'm sure a lot of other countries in the world feel the same way on a social media stage. Right. So for you to be sharing and talking and you know what I mean, having podcasts and doing all this stuff with people from around the world, it's like, you know, oh yeah, carving does exist everywhere. And you know, we're all feeling the same feelings. Like we're all have the same challenges and we all have the same successes, and we want to share those with other people. So it's kind of like a connecting point for all of us, right?
Yeah, no, it is. It absolutely is. I loved what I wasn't the one managing the Saburrtooth page. I loved what Melissa was doing before me. She did a great job about doing the same thing. And as a viewer, it was really nice. And that's where I found a lot of other people. I'm like, oh, there's somebody who's doing it in New York. Oh, there's somebody doing near me. Like, cause it's so hard to know where other carvers are located near you.
Yes.
We're so disconnected, but like to have a place to go that's centralized, that's sharing, like you said, around the world. You might find somebody local just from that and be amazed that you didn't know they were there.
Well, that's it. Right. And just even like finding someone who's in another country on the opposite side of, you know, I'm looking at somebody who's in Seattle, you know, complete far away as you can get on this landmass. Yep. And they're doing the same types of things as me. And it's like, you know, like it makes you feel good that like, you know, you're headed somewhere, right? Like, you've got something going, and that like, you know, there's other people that care about it too. You're not just like some person in a garage, you know, carving random stuff, right?
Yeah. Right. You're connected to other people. Yeah. You're part of a bigger thing.
Yeah. You're part of a bigger thing. And like, I mean, I know it's been a great influence on me. And it's like, obviously like helped me with, you know, other people being a wider audience, seeing my work. But it's mostly helped me because I've seen more work. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not the wider audience. It's like, I can see more now.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Your world opens up too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because you don't always get to see it on your feed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't realize how much work it is to go through a hashtag. And like, I'm sure it's, yes, massive amounts of work. And, but, you know, to have somebody that's dedicated to that, to kind of like pick these things out and be like, hey, look what this person's doing, and showcasing it, it's super cool. I enjoy it.
Such a little stalker too. If people didn't tag Saburrtooth, I'll comment just to see if they use Saburrtooth.
Right. Yeah.
Like, come on, I want to share that piece.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Use Saburrtooth products.
Yeah. Just put the hashtag down. Right. Yeah.
It's like, come on, hashtag it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, otherwise, I don't know what I'm sharing. You know, I want to know.
Yeah, really though, right? It's cool though that, I mean, with the Saburrtooth community, that people know that that's a thing.
Yes.
That they can hashtag it, and it's not just like out into oblivion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Looking at it all day long.
Like,
I go in 3 times a day just to see, did anyone use it today?
Yes.
Like, you know, who made what?
That's right. Yeah. And it's neat because I find it's unique compared to other companies, and the way that people use hashtags with other companies. It's not about getting attention from a company.
I want to see it. Yeah.
But it's more like to the community. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a direct route to the other carvers versus a direct route to the company itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you go and click on that, you're finding people, and you're not more or less coming to a company page that's just telling you to buy Saburrtooth. No, you're seeing a community of artists
that's right.
All love that tool.
That's it. And you're finding out about the tool through the other people's experiences, which are all positive anyway. So, you know what I mean? But it's not a brochure, you know, it's interactive.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Those connections that I've made through Saburrtooth years ago are still going on today. Still people I talk to every day, you know, and how cool is that?
Yeah.
That a tool company could connect me with somebody on another part of the world that I talk to on a regular basis.
When I know we're going long a little bit here, but when I first started like really diving into Instagram and stuff like that, I thought it was so weird that people got so passionate about certain tool companies.
Yeah.
Till I started falling in love with Saburrtooth. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I get it. It's that you love that product always works and does what it says it's gonna do. Like,
yep. And that's it. It's not about
life.
Yep. That's right. Yeah. And that it is super rare with the tool. And like when you find that, especially someone who's into tools, it's like you like hold on to that and you covet it and you like spread the word.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's not about getting something in return. It's like, I just telling you this because like I love them and I want you to love them.
Yeah.
Right.
See, you're going to struggle with that if you try using this. You should really go get this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Without sounding like an advertisement. Right. But it's totally true though, right?
Mm-hmm. No, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming out.
All right, I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed getting to know Adam. He was a lot of fun and just really, he understands like building a community is really important. I thought that was nice. It's great to be connected with each other and, follow along with each other's journeys and see how we all grow as we progress with our passions. So anyways, I just wanted to remind everybody that we'll be at the Maker Camp in the Catskills of New York in October. So if you are free and you want to join, I know you can come. I think there is a $15 and that's just like a visitor pass. If you just want to come and hang out and watch and talk and relax with everybody, you can just come and show up and do that. And then they have participation packages and things to stay there too. But we definitely want you all to come out, come say hi. There's going to be some cool things going on. There's going to be some competitions and give outs. So we really want you guys to come join us at the Maker Camp and come say hi to Sadie Mae and myself. It's going to be a really good time. Otherwise, just want to say thank you for listening and keep on carving.